Ever wonder what difference hiring a professional writer can make in your marketing? Today, we have Laurel Wilder. She is a former senior director of marketing and communications at College Now, and she is also a communications consultant. And we're going to talk about the difference that having that professional skill set can really make in your marketing right after this. All right. Well, Laurel, I am excited to have another writer to discuss things with. I love these podcasts because I feel like I always learn something about the camera and lighting and all of those things. But today I feel like we get to really touch on what my background is, which is writing, and yours as well. So if you can start by just telling everybody a little bit about your background and kind of how that has brought you to what you're doing now.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here and talking with you.
Yeah.
My background, I studied English at Allegheny College. I really wanted to go into journalism. When I was starting out, Allegheny didn't have a journalism program, so I just went into English. When I graduated, I knew I wanted to do something with writing. Started out in corporate marketing at a law firm. Quickly realized corporate marketing was not what I wanted to do. I wanted to be doing something where I helped people. And at that time, I was also freelancing for a blog that covered the Cleveland Guardians and their minor league systems. I thought I wanted to go into sports journalism. Also realized through doing that sports journalism wasn't where I wanted to be. I wanted something a little more structured, where I was still telling stories and making a difference, but in 9 to 5 hours instead of any time, day or night.
Sure.
So I found the opportunity at a nonprofit called College Now Greater Cleveland that helped students get to and through college. I started as their marketing and communications assistant, where I was able to assist in all their marketing efforts. It was a small marketing team of only 2 individuals, so I was able to get my hands into everything, but really focused on the writing side of it and telling stories of the students that we assisted in their college journey, what they were doing after college, and how our work really impacted their career and college journeys. And I was at College Now for about 7 or 8 years. I moved up to the senior director of marketing and communications role, expanded the team to 3 individuals, which was very exciting. We were able to do a little more. But then my husband and I had our first son last year, and I took a step back and am now working in a marketing communications consultant capacity, mostly with College Now. But any nonprofit is really where my focus is, helping organizations tell their stories effectively, focusing on their writing opportunities.
That's great. I love that you've done so many different things, because I think that's one thing that I found with my writing, working in different industries and doing different kinds of pieces really help kind of make you a more well-rounded writer. And so I'm excited to hear more about how all those different experiences come into play. But I think that for our viewers, like a lot of things that a lot of times we find with our clients that people, they think, everybody can write something, right? Like you can write an email, you're writing every day, but that's a lot different, I think, than writing for putting content together for your marketing.
Yes.
There's a special skill set that's there, and I feel like a lot of people don't maybe understand, why it is good to bring in a professional when you're writing anything from your blogs to your video scripts, and why having that skill set is so important. So can you talk a little bit about maybe some of the pain points or challenges or things that you've seen with different companies that you've worked with, and maybe the gaps or weaknesses that you help to fill for them?
Absolutely. I completely agree. Like you said, we all write emails every day. We write text messages, but that is completely different than when you're trying to put together a flyer, an award nomination, a blog. I completely agree with you. One of the big things I found is, especially when you have someone who is at a very high level in an organization, often they know exactly the message they want to get out and what they want to say, but they know so much about the topic. they know all the jargon and the specific words that you might use internally to talk about it, but that doesn't always translate to your audience. And sometimes it's hard for someone who maybe doesn't see the outside of the organization as much as someone in a community outreach or marketing role would, to be able to understand what's going to resonate with those audience members. At College Now, a big portion of our audience was teenagers. And, if you are someone in a senior leadership position, you might not know how exactly your messaging is going to resonate with a teenager who doesn't even know what they want to do after high school. So you need a professional there who understands how to bridge that gap between corporate jargon and high-level discussions and your average teenager who's trying to decide, do I want to go to college? Do I want to get a trade certificate? And you have to make them understand why their decision is important and what that decision might entail. So you need someone who's able to make that content digestible, to level it down a little bit, and to make sure that the audience reading it is going to understand exactly what is being said. I think jargon is a big part of that. You have those words in your organization that you know exactly what they mean, but the average reader, listener, or consumer isn't going to have that same understanding. So you need to find a way to concisely explain things and make sure that they're understandable. And I think a professional has the experience doing that and has the understanding of how to manipulate and massage those quotes and those ideas into a way that's going to be much more easily understood.
Yeah, I think that you said that wonderfully. Just you want your marketing to be effective, right? So why wouldn't you have optimize it and have someone come in and help you with it to make it as effective as possible? Because there are so many things to consider, like you said, the jargon, and then also your audience. That's a huge point. And I think that even some of the platform restrictions, like if you're doing something for a social media post, it's going to be much different than if you're writing a blog, or you said you did like 900 biographies at your law firm. Yes. And I think that's huge too. Another great example, I was talking to all these lawyers that worked at a law firm and writing their biographies for the firm website. And these lawyers are exceptionally smart. They know their area of the law inside and out. But when you're writing their bio, you want a client to be reading that and understand exactly what they do and how they can help them in a similar situation. But your client's not going to have that same law background. So you need someone in there to, again, bridge that gap. The lawyer is going to write their bio in a way that's full of legal phrases and a way that they understand, but that doesn't mean that their client is going to understand it in the same way. So you need someone to basically dumb it down and make it digestible and understandable. Yeah, definitely. I mean, even with the video scripts, I put together, sometimes people will take a stab at writing it, and they have all the information in there, but it's really like, tweaking it to make sure that's going to resonate with the audience as quickly as possible too, which is really important for video because, they say, you only have like 30 seconds to get your viewers' attention. So you really have to like front load that message and get that interest so that people are going to watch your video. A professional will know how to do that. And you only have maybe your video is only a minute on social media. Maybe it's a little bit longer. Like what content do you include? Which content do you cut out? So, it's definitely a skill set. And I think that is the benefit to companies, is just really having somebody that is, versed in that knowledge space. So, and that's important whether you're a small business or whether you're a large corporate company, but also if you're a nonprofit. So, because I'm thinking, you're really trying to get people on board with your mission and your cause so that you can continue to get, grants, and you can continue to engage with the people that you're trying to help. Exactly. And I also want to go back to how you mentioned social media and how it's going to be so different. And I think that's something that a lot of companies, and I'm thinking specifically nonprofits, again, who might have very small marketing departments because they have a small marketing budget, but that social media is going to be super effective. Most of the time it's free unless you decide to boost your posts. But when you have a small marketing budget, social media is going to be the way to go. And I think when a lot of people are hiring,
writing, they're looking at who's great at social media, but they don't understand that necessarily means writing. You're writing captions, as you said, you're writing scripts, but they look for someone who's extremely creative or who can make a very visually appealing video without thinking about the rest of the things that are going to go into it that's going to make you look at that video. Just because it looks really pretty, like you said, if you don't have that messaging right at the beginning, you only have that short period of time to capture someone's attention, you're not necessarily going to have an effective social media plan unless you have a strong writer behind it who's going to be able to translate your message. Right. I think about, you see so many influencers with their videos on social media now. It's always, more content in the caption. Read the caption for why what I'm saying is important. And if you're not writing a good caption, your video is not going to be effective on your platform.
I think social media is definitely a good one to touch on, because I feel like sometimes maybe people will think of having a professional writer help with their blog post, but they think maybe having one person to schedule the social media, like manage the social media, and then also write the content for it. And then in some cases, even go on like Canva or something and create the graphics. And that's fine. I mean, if you're, a small business or an organization, like it's better to be on there and do it, rather than not. But as you become more refined and your marketing becomes more effective, you're going to want to break some of that down. Like, I don't enjoy managing social media at all.
I'm with you on that.
I've done it, but that's a whole different skill set. Like, I don't understand how like every single algorithm works,
right,
or the best times to post, or what content is better for different types of social media. I mean, I have my foot in that a little bit because we do it, with video, but really, I think like my strong suit would be writing those captions, and again, capturing somebody's attention in a very small period of time and standing out like in the scroll.
Right.
So just something else to think about. That's kind of the difference between, hiring one person and just having them maybe, tackle it all, or doing it yourself. And then really starting to draw in different experts from those different areas to make everything more effective. So now, as people try to do that, we have this new technology, AI, whether it's Chat GPT or another platform. People ask me if I'm scared of this all the time. Like, are you worried about it? Like, I was just on vacation and my uncle-in-law asked me, are you scared of AI? And the thing is, like, when people talk about these AI platforms, like writing does come up as a top maybe job in jeopardy, or something that people can maybe do themselves or cut out of the equation. And I have played around with with Chat GPT a little bit, and I think that it could be a great tool. But I think that if people are only using AI, they're missing out on all that other value that they're getting.
Yes, I completely agree. I think authenticity is huge in marketing communications. And I think that's part of the reason you need a human behind a lot of your writing. And when I think of AI, again, I think a lot about the nonprofits that do have those small budgets who might think, maybe we can cut some corners, save a few bucks by putting this blog post through Chat GPT or using AI to write it. But I think what people forget is you still need someone to then review that, make sure it's accurate, and make sure the voice fits your organization and brand guidelines. Make sure it sounds like you. And so that's still an individual. Are you necessarily saving money by having, Chat GPT essentially write your first draft? There's a good chance you're going to be making a lot of edits to it, making sure that they have the facts correct, which you don't necessarily know that AI is going to know exactly what, I think of College Now and a lot of these things, know what the FAFSA is, or know what the ACT is. You're putting a lot of faith in something that is not necessarily an expert. And again, the authenticity is huge in any sort of marketing and communications. Authenticity is going to resonate with your audience. They want to believe that you believe in what you're talking about. And I don't know how well AI is going to be able to do that, to speak to something in a way that's believable.
Authenticity is huge. I mean, I like to look back at some of the marketing of like the 50s or 60s, and you're like, Do people actually believe that? Like, that seems like it's a blatant sales pitch, you know?
Yes.
And I think, you know, we've come so far now in like consuming different advertising and marketing through the years that, people really, they'll just tune you out, you know, and be like, oh, you're salesy if you're not being authentic. So, and it's interesting what you said too about using it for a first draft, because I was thinking like, yeah, you know, like you could maybe, maybe use a podcast you did or something else to throw the words in there and try to get a first draft, and then maybe use it, maybe just hire someone to edit it. But there have been many times that I feel like that does cost more, because if it's not a good first version, then, you know, sometimes I think it's just easier to start over. And in that point, like, I've done that with articles, and it's like, if we just started, and I know we do that with video footage too. Sometimes people think that they're saving money by having some existing footage, and sometimes it's usable, but sometimes it needs more color correction and all these other editing layers to really make it work, and it ends up being more expensive. So just some things to think about.
Yes, exactly. Anytime I hear people talk about AI, and the same thing when people ask, oh, well, is it going to threaten writing jobs? You know, my husband's in journalism. We have a lot of friends in the journalism field, and it's the same thing where it's like, well, is this going to threaten your job if, hey, I can just write this story? And I don't see it, you know, having longstanding value for the authenticity reason, but also because, you know, you're not going to lose jobs because of AI, because you're going to need to hire people to massage everything out. Mm-hmm. So at the end of the day, I think you're going to be doing more work if you rely on AI than like you said, if you just
hire an expert from the beginning. Yeah, because with my experience of it, you know, I'll put something in there, and I just listened to a previous podcast on this too, and they were talking about how there's just no sourcing, and there's no, and that's, you know, you don't want to put something out to your audience and it be incorrect. Exactly. Like, talk about like, you know, the ultimate lack of trust. Like, you've just lost their trust right there, and it's going to be very hard to get back. Yeah. So I worry about that. And also the podcast was interesting. It's Stuff You Should Know. If anybody listens to that, it's a great podcast. But they were talking about how it's using content that's already on the internet. So we run into issues of plagiarism,
right?
And it's you know, they were saying it could come to a point if we're only using content that's on the internet already, like there's going to be no human produced content, which is a crazy thing to think about.
I can't imagine that at all.
Yeah. So it's like, it seems very dangerous. Yes. But I also want to make sure that we, you know, don't come off too like anti-technology, because I mean, there's some great things that like tools, even like spell check came along, and like Grammarly.
That's what I was just going to say. Grammarly.
Yeah, that's kind of how I compare it to, because as I left the magazine I was writing for, like I was used to having this team of editors, and I lost that. So I had to make sure that I got it right, and before I pass it along. So Grammarly is a great tool. It's great for emails and everything too. I highly recommend it to anyone. So that makes my job a little easier and helps me, do a better job. So I think that platforms that are AI could have some benefits. Like I could maybe see, I think people have trouble coming up with like blog topics or things a lot. Like maybe you use that to Google like some common questions in your industry or come up with topics. Like maybe that would be a good use of it.
I agree. And I think it can also be helpful. The place that Grammarly always really helped me, I am very flowery in a lot of my writing, and it would help me cut down and make things more concise, which is extremely, extremely helpful when you have a certain word count limit, or you just want to make sure that you're getting your message across in the least amount of words possible. Yes. So I think there is a lot of opportunity for AI platforms in situations like that. But I just think that you can't base your whole strategy around.
Right. Yeah. Use it as a tool, but that professional help will really take it to the next level.
Oh, exactly.
And again, make your marketing effective, because, you're spending money, especially nonprofits, you have limited resources. You want to get it right the first time. We've said this many times on this podcast, but I'll repeat it again. If you think it's expensive to hire a professional, try hiring an amateur. And, what I mean by that is if you want to get it right the first time, that's where the skill set and the expertise really comes in. if you hire an amateur, there's a good chance that it might not be to the level that you're looking for.
Exactly. And the other thing I think about that is when you have the professional writing it, someone who knows your brand, your industry, they can also reflect your values very well in the copy that they're producing. And I think especially over the past, 3 or 4 years when brands are very, very heavily focused on their DEI initiatives and making sure that they are inclusive, I think that there's huge opportunity there for a professional to make sure everything they're producing reflects the values of those brands and makes sure that every consumer reading it knows that they are valued by the brand, that the company is understanding, and again, is putting those things that they say that they value into every aspect of their work.
Yeah, I think that's really, what makes a professional too is they're not only taking maybe the information they're getting from your executives or from several pieces maybe that you're working from, but they're also having, like, a lot of times different organizations will have, just like they have their brand guide, they have like their messaging platform or something that they're constantly trying to express through their values or other aspects. And so it's kind of like taking that content and then weaving in those things, those messages that you always want to be reinforcing with your audience over and over again. So, those are some of the things I think that are important to consider, especially in this new era where we do have these different tools, and just kind of understanding, where they can be useful, but where you don't want to limit your marketing potential by not getting that insight from somebody who lives and breathes it,
Exactly. Yes. Yes, I completely agree.
So was there anything else that you wanted to share, Laurel? I mean, I feel like we covered a lot here. Any summaries or thoughts for our listeners and viewers to walk away with?
I think the big thing that I just want to emphasize is there is no replacement for a strong professional writer as part of your team. With small budgets, I know it can be hard to think about what is the most important skill set that you're hiring for when you're hiring for a team of 2 or 3. But I can say from experience, strong writing was always the number one thing I looked for when I was hiring new team members. And that never led me wrong because then they were able to excel in any sort of marketing that we were working on, whether it is taking those high-level CEO remarks and turning them into a speech, into a blog post, or just creating social content that's going to resonate with our audience. If you're a strong writer, you're going to excel in any aspect of a marketing career. So if there's one skill set I think I can implore people to focus on, to think about, make sure that your writing is as strong as it can possibly be. Even if it's just because you're submitting a cover letter to a job you're really interested in, strong writing is going to set you apart from the beginning.
I think that's really the power of writing and communication. If you're having misspellings and if you're, not communicating with your audience as effectively as possible, like, you're just doing yourself a disfavor, and losing out on some of the potential that you could be using to really powerfully engage with your audience. So thank you so much, Laura. I appreciate it. It's been fun chatting with you. I'm excited to be able to talk to another writer. And thank you, everybody, for watching and listening.
Thanks for listening to Watch Time. We hope you guys enjoyed today's episode.
And remember to like and subscribe so you don't miss future episodes.
And if you want your question answered on our podcast, go to flexmediacle.com/watchtime.